Welcome, friends of the IDF. My name is Jennifer Scher. I'm the Vice President of the MidAtlantic region based in Washington, D.C. It is my honor to be here with you today. As our soldiers continue to secure Israel and our family there, we are fortunate to bring you an update straight from the IDF. Spokesperson Major David Ross is with us today to provide insights and deeper understanding into many complex developments. After that, we will be joined by an incredible hero and lone soldier from California who has been serving since October 7th. She will take us through her experience on the front lines and a personal look at life on the ground and as a lone soldier. Major Ross, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you, FIDF, for having me here. It's a privilege. It's always good to be amongst friends. These are difficult times, both within Israel and I'm sure for the Jewish people all around the world, and also for all those who stand with us. So in these times, it's good to be here, and it's a great privilege. Thanks, Jennifer.
Share with us a little bit of what's been happening right now on the field and how are operations going in this moment?
Thanks, Jennifer. So in terms of our operations have been extremely successful. It might not be what you hear about because the media isn't always focused on accuracy, sadly, these days, but the operations to dismantle the Hamas capabilities have been extremely successful in Gaza City, as you probably know, now currently ongoing in Khan Yunis. Extremely successful operations to dismantle the capabilities of Hamas, which have been using a modus operandi of hiding amongst civilians. And this isn't just the human shield strategy that we've talked about and known about for years, but it's hiding inside and underneath hospitals like the Al-Shifa Hospital, Rantisi Hospital, and even this week in the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis area. And not just that, but in cemeteries like the Beni Suhaila cemetery, where we uncovered a tunnel underneath the cemetery, and also in mosques and schools. So the operations are more complex than probably anything any modern army has faced, but they've been extremely successful because as the weeks go by and the months go by, we're destroying their capabilities wherever they are in the Gaza Strip. And as you know, just over a week ago, released hostages in the midst of Rafah or Rafiah in the southern Gaza Strip, which is a densely populated area and highly complicated mission. And from a call that I was on with the head of Southern Command, he described it as, I'm quoting him, almost science fiction. In other words, the mission that successfully was operated by both the IDF and the ISA and the police forces is an exceptional example of the strength of the IDF, of the success of our operations, and despite what people say, our ability to deal with complexity. In terms of the rest of the operations ongoing in the north, we're, as you must be aware, highly prepared. We do not want to go to war. The people of Israel are strong. The IDF is strong. We all enlisted, I'm sure Shira as well as myself, out of our own choice. I was actually a combat officer in the past. I was injured as a civilian, but I chose to volunteer back in the IDF spokesperson because we have a moral responsibility to protect the country. And that's what we're doing in Gaza. That's what we're going to continue to do in the northern border as we need. Now, we don't want war, and hopefully we will reach a diplomatic solution which will distance the terrorists from our doorstep. But if need be, we're highly prepared on all fronts.
We know that international pressure has been really mounting, even from the U.S. to stop Israel from completing missions like in Rafah. How can Israel win the war, protect its citizens, and also maintain and nurture the strategic alliances that are essential on the international stage?
So in terms of the international stage, I'll emphasize that my role here is not a diplomat. My role here is a spokesperson for the IDF. So what I'll tell you is what I know and the take that the IDF has on things. But we are extremely grateful for the support that the United States and others have given us. We're aware our allies have been extremely instrumental in helping protect international interests, the interests of trade, the interests of a free world that's standing up against terror. They've also been supportive of our mission to dismantle Hamas, to bring home the hostages, and ultimately to win this war and to end the reign of evil which is taking place, which raised its head on October 7th. And the international community has been extremely supportive of that. Even the resolutions that you read, although they may not be, they may not have the wording that we would choose, they've been very careful not to say anything that prevents us from fulfilling our mission to bring home all the hostages and to dismantle Hamas. So obviously we have a fine line to walk. Our mission is not an easy one, but the IDF is strong and the morale is high. My own brother was fighting in the Gaza Strip and was in a gunfight. He's a medic, and he was in a gunfight where they were evacuating for injured soldiers who they successfully saved their lives in that mission. And many other friends of mine who are on the front lines all talk about how the army is together and they stand together. And it's extremely important for me to emphasize that the morale really is high. And part of the reason for that is an awareness of the support of people like yourselves in the United States and elsewhere. And we're extremely grateful for it. It gives us the strength to keep going day in and day out.
Let's look at sort of the North for a moment. Yeah. I know we're seeing a lot of disturbing reports that Iran is within 30 days of achieving nuclear weapons, which is something we've been concerned about and warning about for at least 15 years. How does this affect the soldiers' thinking and the scope of war? And as we see Hezbollah attacks becoming more frequent and more aggressive in the North, what's the mindset of everybody in this moment?
So I hope you didn't hear the singing in the office next to me during this briefing, but there was some. If you didn't hear, then that's better. It's more professional. Okay. But they have been singing, which it shows that the soldiers in the IDF are happy to do their work. They're happy to protect the country. And in terms of whether Iran is growing or not, that's above my pay grade. What I can say, though, is that it doesn't impact the abilities of the soldiers on the ground. It doesn't impact the morale. In reality, one of the more difficult things that soldiers are facing, especially in the North, is the weather. I was up there with my family actually on a bit of R&R in the North. We chose to go up north, even though there's a war going on, because we're proud to be part of this country, and it's a beautiful place. And during our time there, there were rockets that were fired, killing a soldier in Sfat, very sadly. But the soldiers who are on the northern borders they're stuck in the mud. They're dealing with the rain. It's the same is true in the Gaza Strip. It's difficult conditions. I know we're not all in. It's probably not quite as cold as it is over in DC, Jennifer, but it's definitely not a Florida winter for those of you who are tuning in from Florida. And it's not easy. So all the support that we have in terms of warm clothing and even medical supplies that I know that FIDF has supported, it's definitely helping. And in terms of our readiness, we are striking Hezbollah's capabilities, and we're slowly pushing them from the border because the IDF's capabilities, although Hezbollah's no joke, we are every match for them, and we'll defeat them in a war if we have to. And all the Iranian efforts to smuggle weapons from Iran through Syria, through Lebanon, we are dealing with them both with airstrikes and with complex operations, including intelligence. And I won't go into the details of those, but we are dealing with them, and we're well aware of it. We are grateful for the support of all of those in the free world who are standing up against Iran, and those who are confused and think that Iran is not a serious contender, is not disrupting the Middle East. I don't think you have a very difficult argument to make if you can just point them to the Iranian proxies that are at work all over the Middle East. And so our morale is high. We're dealing with the threats that Iran is throwing at us from all different angles. And we're grateful for the support of our friends around the world but also our society is strong. We stand strongly together. And from what I've seen on the northern border, although many civilians are still distanced from their homes, the flowers are starting to bloom. And Israelis from all over the country, I'm sure, even if it's not in the next weeks, next year, we'll be able to enjoy the flowers blooming. And hopefully it's a sign of good things to come and of growth that we will have both as a society and for a prosperous and blooming Middle East, in which Israel, as the only democracy, hopefully won't be the only democracy in the future. But if we have to be the only ones that are standing strong, we will.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you here with us today. If there's one last message that you want to leave that, you hope that, the diaspora community and those of us who have really had to be the voice of Israel locally in our communities, what's that message that you would want to leave us with?
I think it's an obvious message, but it's a powerful one. Israel isn't going anywhere. And so you don't need to be afraid that Israel is, our existence is threatened. Yes, we have difficult wars to fight, but we're here, we're not going anywhere. And if you're supporting us, you're supporting a winning cause. So thank you for your support. And you can also be encouraged that you're on the right side. Thank you. Shalom. And I hope you all can have as much peace as possible, and that the hard work that we're doing here on the ground and the hard work that you're doing over there will be paying off. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David. We are now going to shift. It is our pleasure to welcome Corporal Shira. She is a 19-year-old lone soldier from California and has been serving in combat units and has a big story to share for us from life since October 7th and how she became a lone soldier. So Shira, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your journey of being a lone soldier and being in a co-ed combat unit.
So about a year and a half ago, right after I finished high school, I made Aliyah when I was 17 years old, and I moved to Israel for the army. I did a program called Gerin Tzabang, and Gerin Tzabang really helped me get to Israel, helped me throughout the entire process of joining the army. And then I went to a Hebrew learning course in the army. I then drafted into a co-ed combat unit, and now I serve on the Egyptian border in a co-ed combat unit that does infantry and borders.
Take us through October 7th and where you were and what happened next.
So it was actually the week that I had finished all of my 8 months of training. I had just finished. We had gone to a few days off of base before we went into our official positions. And Saturday night, I had come home late home. Friday night I had come home late. And as soon as I got home, I went to sleep. I was asleep about a couple hours before I started getting a bunch of phone calls from my commanders early in the morning at about 7. We were told we immediately needed to return to base. We returned to base, and as soon as we got to base, we grabbed all of our gear and immediately went to Otef Aza.
And what happened from there? Talk to me a little bit about being in Holit and what was accomplished.
So Holit is a kibbutz in Otef Aza, and from there, my unit, we met with another commando unit, and there were still terrorists inside at the time. We had known many people were injured, but we did not know what we were walking into exactly. So we all took our positions and began to comb through the area and try to eliminate the terrorists and get them out, while simultaneously trying to aid the injured and bring out whoever we could. And we were trying to help as many people as we could while simultaneously dealing with the terrorists. Many fell by our sides, friends, other units, and we just kept having to go and continue. And it was hard. There was a lot to see, and it was a sad day, but we got through it and we continued to help as many as we could.
what do you, having just, you were relaxing, you had just finished a whole set of training. Um, what is the mindset as a soldier and as a lone soldier pre-October 7th and now post-October 7th?
Well, me as a lone soldier, I had the motivation the entire time. I had known what I wanted to do. Never in my life would I have thought there would have been a war. Um, but the war really showed how much it means to be in the army here. It shows how important it is. It really showed us how we all can come together as one, and it showed even people who aren't in the army, we came together and we supported each other. People everywhere are helping, and it means the world to us. People like you guys sending money and helping any way you can, it really helped us. And as a soldier now, the mindset really is like we do what we can, and this is what we're fighting for because we've seen the worst of it. We're in the worst of it now, and from there we can only move forward.
When you are in the thick of it and you are both preparing for battle and in battle, well, how do you prepare yourself and your mindset?
Okay, my unit in general, and this is all units, and I can tell you that, we singing and dancing. Singing and dancing whenever you can really lifts the spirit. And I'm not even joking about this. It's something that everyone in Israel does. Whenever you can sing, whenever you can dance, it lifts you up. And it's scary knowing you're gonna walk into something bad. It's scary for everyone. And it's sad. We're sad all the time, but you just think of what you're doing and why you're doing it. You're doing for everyone who fell on October 7th. You're doing it for the soldiers who've fallen. You're doing it for the hostages who are still in there. You're doing it for all of Israel. And you just think of that the entire time. That's your motivation to go in and do it. And that's why we're all fighting here.
How are your parents doing?
It's hard for them. It's really hard for them, especially on October 7th. Like my dad was texting me beforehand. He had known more than me. Somehow he had figured it out. This stuff was going on and I was just half asleep and confused. And I had tried to let my mother sleep a little bit, get one last night of good sleep until in the middle of the night she ended up calling me. I tried to let her sleep a little bit because as a mother I knew she wouldn't get sleep after that. And we just cried on the phone together while I was waiting for the bus to come. And then I went, and now we're trying to get a little better with it. My dad came to Israel with a bunch of tactical gear, was able to help with that. My mother came for 5 days knowing she wouldn't be able to see me, but still came to help and volunteer with other women and mothers of lone soldiers.
Beautiful. How have you sort of throughout your service interacted with FIDF?
So one of the gyms at our base here is actually funded by the FIDF. It is an amazing gym, and I know it doesn't sound like much, but it helps us in the most important way possible. It keeps us in the best shape we can, and we use it all the time. When we were in Otef Aza, we were getting donations constantly from the FIDF, which I can tell you helped more than you could imagine because we were sleeping in all of our gear. We didn't have anything with us, just our gear. So every donation absolutely helped. We barely even had food with us, and it meant the world to us. Every time it would come, it was like a holiday all over again.
Is there anything sort of as you reflect on your experience that you would want to share? You know, there's actually a lot of Americans now who are looking at young Americans who are looking at becoming lone soldiers, and the war has really sparked them. What message would you give to them?
I would just say to do it and come. You don't even have to be in combat to give as much. Every position in this army does something and it means something. Everyone is working so hard right now, and even the people on the front lines, even if you're going into Gaza or you're back training people behind the scenes, it all matters just as much, and it truly is our country, and these are our people, and you won't see anything like it anywhere else in the world. No one ran on October 7th. Everyone just comes together, and there's no better place to serve.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your experience?
Um, Honestly, just everything everyone is seeing online, everything you're seeing about Hamas, it's all every awful thing you've heard, the worst is unimaginable. Everything that's happened has been awful, but Israel really is coming together, and the donations you guys are sending from FIDF honestly helps us more than you guys could ever imagine. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Shira. Thank you so much. David, I want to switch back to you just for a moment. Having heard sort of Shira's reflections, I couldn't help but smile when she talked about dancing, because you literally were just talking about the dancing in the background. So it's kind of a Bashir kind of comment. But what are sort of, after hearing Shira's, what are some of your reflections? Or I saw you nodding a lot.
Yeah, as someone who was a combat soldier myself, there's always a sense of missing out with all my friends, or the many friends that I have that are in Gaza. So first of all, Shira, thank you for recognizing those of us who aren't in combat positions. We thank you for your service, and we appreciate the recognition there. We really are all together. One of the things that I was struck by most with what Shira was saying about and it connects to the October 7th sentiment, was my family and I were actually on holiday in the UK on October 7th. And besides the fact that I'm still hoping that I'll wake up and think it was all a dream, in all seriousness, I'm not sure if there's any other country in the world that when a war breaks out, the country sets up evacuation flights to go to the war. So my family and I, my brother and I and others, got on evacuation flights by El Al going to Israel. Even though we knew there was a war, we all wanted to, whether we were called up or not, we wanted to be part of the effort of what was going on, to help function, help to come together as a society, as a people. And the whole of Israel was attacked on October 7th. It wasn't just the Jewish people, and we see post-October 7th anti-Semitism on the rise, but the attacks were against Bedouins, they were against Jews, Arabs, anybody that even had by accident been in Israel, Thai workers, Nepalese workers. And so we all really came together, and we've been continuing to come together, and to see the amount of people that have come on solidarity visits, on solidarity tours, that have donated, that have taken of their own time. I have friends who have done miluim, reserves duty, and then in their free time go to volunteer at a food bank. And I'm not sure there's any other people that would have this type of experience of a war. And so, although the reality that we're dealing with in this country is difficult, it's heavy, there's trauma, there's continual difficulty, and there's a reckoning that we are going through and that we'll have to go through. At the same time, there's a true joy and definitely an honor and a privilege to be here, to be part of this amazing people which are working together, both in the army, as Shira said, all the different positions in the army, but also as civilians. And whether it's on the ground inside Gaza, or guarding Gaza, or guarding the country like Shira and her friends, or in the spokesperson office like myself and my colleagues, or being in the information sphere, which I don't envy any of you who are dealing with that, and being our representatives around the world. We're all in this together, and it's really a privilege to be on this side of things, in this part of this amazing people. So that's really my follow-up. Maybe we'll organize some dancing later on here, but or maybe we'll save some of it for celebrating more hostages coming home, God willing.
Amen. Amen. God willing, we should know this soon, and you should all be safe, whether you're behind a screen or right there on the front lines. Know that really and truly we are all with you. It's been a unique experience for us to have donors, you should know, are so passionate, and so they want to literally do anything and everything they can to help, whether it's showing up right there and helping in person. But really, our October 7th story is that we had people calling us literally crying as they were making their gifts, because they said, anything I can do, I want to do. And so they're all here. And so even though you can't see all the faces of everyone who's here in this moment, know that we are here. And I want to thank everyone who has signed on today. Thank you for joining us. And we know that the news cycles move quickly, and for us, this is still our top news story, and for others, it's not. But the war is still raging, and we're all here. And our soldiers are still sacrificing and defending and facing unimaginable dangers to protect Israel and really the Jewish future. So please stay with FIDF, stay with our soldiers, stay with us. We absolutely have their backs, and they have ours. So thank you all for everything you're doing, and Am Yisrael Chai forever.